All right, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com here with a good friend of mine, Paul Nison. And you know, there's been a lot of controversy about Paul lately on YouTube, on the internet, on different websites. And so I'm here with Paul today to ask him some questions, talk, and find out more about what's going on. So Paul, what was your big announcement that you had to tell everybody that got everybody riled up?
Well, I basically just told everybody that I've been eating a raw vegan diet for a very long time, 100%. And I have found that it's not necessary to be 100% raw vegan and be healthy. My main key of the announcement was to tell everybody cooked food is not as poison or bad as people think it is. If it was, me, you, or anyone else wouldn't be here because we spend the majority of our life eating cooked food. And the other thing was, in animal products, there's a big difference between commercially factory farm raised animals that are drugged up and processed versus like organic fresh raw goat milk from a small farm. Big difference. So I was just telling people to have more of an open mind and to just get out of the box of a raw vegan diet. I even told people if it's working for you and you love it, there's no reason to change or do anything. But don't put yourself in a box thinking you can't touch food or say cook food or look at an animal or something like that. Just have an open mind.
So I would agree 100% with Paul. I got into raw foods not to be raw. I don't care about raw foods per se, but what I care about is my health. As many of you know me or not, I almost lost my life, and you know, just like Paul, I had a healing crisis, and you know, I had to basically go raw or maybe not even live. I probably wouldn't be here today. So, you know, in my opinion, the goal should be 100% health, not 100% raw. So, you know, if you do need to eat some cooked foods, not that I'm advocating it, not that I do it, I eat 99.999% raw foods since 1995. I'm, you know, grateful and admire Paul for actually coming out and telling the truth and just being real and telling, hey, you know, I don't eat all raw and this is what's going on. So he's just sharing with you what he's doing, you know, and you don't need to feel personally attacked because he's doing that. You know, just do your path. And, you know, if you're feeling attacked, maybe there's some, you know, some issues going on with that and stuff that you might want to look into further. So that's something to definitely think about. So 100% health, not 100% raw. I also have blood tests and monitor my blood quite regularly, actually every year, to make sure that I'm healthy on what I'm doing on the, you know, 99.999% raw diet. And the things that I eat, you know, the 0.001, hey John, what's that? Well, those kind of things are maybe occasionally if I go to a potluck, you know, raw cashews from the bulk bins, which isn't really raw, dried fruits and dried nuts that may not be, you know, below 118 degrees when they're dried, because, you know, we don't know that if you're not doing it yourself. But I have my own garden, I grow my own food. So, you know, it's the quality of your food and the variety of food. So if you're eating, you know, 30 bananas a day and romaine lettuce at night, you do that today, you do that tomorrow, you do that the next day, you know what? Paul and I would both agree, and a lot of people would agree, that you're probably going to be deficient in the long run because you're only getting the nutrients in those bananas and the romaine lettuce. You want to eat a wide variety of foods, and as Paul says, you know, ripe, you know, raw, organic, and the right part is really important, you know, unless you don't grow yourself. I mean, we're looking at a Paul's garden here, helped him plant. You know, I was eating fresh collard greens from his garden yesterday. You know, the quality of the food on a raw foods diet, you know, is not what it used to be. I mean, we need to grow our own food and literally pick it and eat it because there's biophotons, life force, prana, chi, whatever you want to call it. And if you go to your whole paycheck store or health food store or any market and buy produce, you know, it's probably shipped from California. It's been picked at least 7 days out, and you're not going to be healthy. And then maybe in that case, you might need to supplement with other things and eat some foods that you normally wouldn't want to. So, you know, grow your own stuff, eat fresh, mineralize your soil, because, you know, I see a lot of people with mineral deficiencies. If you eat your minerals, you know, and use rock dust in your soil, you're going to grow plants with minerals. So the next thing I wanted to ask Paul was, so why did you feel that you needed some cooked foods in your diet?
Well, I didn't feel I needed cooked foods in my diet. I just felt after being on an all raw diet for many, many years, I was limiting myself in situations where if it was available, my real question I asked myself was not why do I need cooked foods, but the real question I asked myself is what's in cooked food that I can have? Why am I limiting myself from not eating cooked foods? And the more I thought about it, I said, you know, there are some cooked foods that are very unhealthy, but steamed vegetables, some alkalizing grains like milled or quinoa on a limited basis, these are not going to harm my health. And the whole reason for me to get away from cooked foods to begin with was because the cooked foods I was eating were harming my health. And I don't believe any of my deficiencies were due to not eating cooked food. The real reason I decided to add cooked food, and it's a very little amount, but I just wanted to get out of this box and stop limiting myself. and realize, if it comes between, there's no food around but just a raw food candy bar or steamed vegetables, those steamed vegetables are going to be a lot better for me than that raw candy bar.
Not all cooked food is created equal, and not all raw foods is created equal. I definitely agree with Paul that some raw candy bar snacks, high in fat and sweets, especially with agave and cacao, it'd be healthier to eat some steamed vegetables or some sprouted and steamed quinoa or millet. I would encourage people actually to eat a high raw diet with some, benign cooked foods like the steamed vegetables and steamed quinoa, but it's not, just cooked food, it's what is the cooked food. Of course, McDonald's is still cooked food, but that's not the same category as, some steamed vegetables. So once again, and the other thing is, not everybody has the mindset to do all raw like I do, or like Paul did, or like other people do. So, in that case, we want to just always improve our diet. Our life should be about choices, not about limiting. I see my life about choices. I see all kinds of new foods. I travel the world trying to find all these new and different foods. We were eating chufas the other day. Raw foods is now about marketing products and packaged products. It's not about eating fresh fruits and vegetables like Paul said. So, I'm trying to educate people about growing their own food. That's the most powerful thing. Visit my website, growingyourdreams.com. See my videos on how you could start your own garden and grow your own food. Okay, Paul, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is, why did you add the dairy into your diet?
Well, again, the same thing. The whole reason I was staying away from dairy products was because I thought they were doing harm to my body if I had them, and they were. But that was processed, drugged up dairy that you would get from just about any supermarket or any grocery store. However, some people started to tell me about fresh raw dairy right from the farm, from grass-fed goats or sheep and so on. And after years of telling them all dairy is no good, I decided, after reading up on it, I decided it's not the same as the dairy you would find in a store. So again, the answer wasn't why did I decide to, add it. It's why was I leaving it out became the question. And so then when I tested it to see what it would do, and if I would have did too much, of course it would have been mucus forming or something. But I did a small amount and I felt fine. I did a little bit more, I felt fine. And I don't do it often because I can't, which might be a good thing because it's illegal in most states to get raw dairy. But and I don't do cow's dairy because that's for the milk of a baby calf that grows to be 800 pounds. But the milk of a goat is similar to the milk of a mother's milk that grows up to be the same size as a human. I'm not saying people out there have to eat, dairy products or anything like that. But what I am saying is, if you have a deficiency, you have a choice. Do you want to take a synthetic supplement? Do you want to try to find out why you're having that deficiency? Maybe not getting those nutrients from your food, you're not assimilating it, or maybe it's just not in the food because the food's grown in poor soil. Or do you want to try to get it from an animal product like eggs or milk or cheese or something like that?
I have tried, a handful of times, tried some raw dairy, and for me, what it did to me was it basically gave me a mucus reaction. So that doesn't happen to Paul, and once again, everybody's different. You need to find out what works for you. I'm not advocating raw dairy. I would say if you're eating, cooked dairy or pasteurized dairy, it's better to eat raw dairy, of course. But I still feel, in my opinion, that we don't need raw dairy in our diets. And if, the milk of the goats are basically made because the goats are eating greens, grasses, leaves, and other things, and they eat those leaves, why don't we go back to, get those leaves? First, if there is a deficiency, if you do get blood tested, there's a deficiency, there should be some steps we should take. Number one, we should see if there's a whole vegan plant food that we can get to solve that deficiency. If not, then maybe the next step would be an isolated nutrient from a whole vegan food. After that, if that didn't work, maybe you'd go to some kind of, depending on your beliefs, if you're a true vegan, then you wouldn't go to an animal product. If you're not, maybe you would go to an animal product to fill that deficiency. Then maybe next, you could go to a synthetic supplement to fill that deficiency. So, there's all stages and levels and where you are on this and how hard you want to work and try, because another thing about raw food is that you should always be experimented, always be conscious on how you feel and how foods affect you. When I ate the dairy, it didn't affect me well. When Paul ate the dairy, I think he felt great and he enjoyed it. And I wasn't that way. So everybody should have their own brain and not listen to gurus or people on the pedestal or people that wrote books that are telling you one thing. People should take the information from others, that write books and that put information out, and then dispel for themselves and try different things and see what works for them, and not just go by the dogma, because you could get stuck in dogma and it could get you in a lot of trouble from what I've seen. So Paul and I would both agree, we want you to succeed on the raw foods diet and not have catastrophes like we've seen so many times. People go gung-ho 100% raw, then a couple weeks or months later they'll be off raw because, oh, it didn't work. And that's maybe because they weren't doing it the healthiest way possible. And I mean, he's, you know, I don't even know, point how much, like that much dairy and that much cooked.
Crazy.
I mean,
it's crazy.
so it's like he just being honest,
That's
and
another,
you know.
that's another thing is that, you know, people out there acting like, you know, I completely abandoned the raw diet, and I told them, you know,
You ate McDonald's?
yeah, it's like Burger King. I told them like once a month I'll have, you know, dairy. If even at most, I can't even get it that often. Like 98 or 7% of my diet is like still raw, and people are just going crazy, and that's a big issue people have.
So, you know, once again, I still consider Paul a great friend. He's still raw in my book, and you know, so, you know, he does things a little bit different than me. You know, that's all right. I still appreciate him. He appreciates me. We still chat. We still hang out. We still go coconuts together. He's still the same guy. So, you know, let's not hassle Paul.